little review, mini review of what was covered so far, and then carry on from there. Let's see how it's going to work here. Friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. It's a nice standard prayer offered to Krishna, and it's a nice introduction for Kunti's prayers, which are also being offered to Krishna. In the past we had this rather lengthy description of the life of Queen Kunti, the daughter of Kunti Bhoja, or actually the daughter of Shurasena, who was then given to his friend Kunti Bhoja to look after, and her marriage to Pandu and the life of Kunti. Her 5 sons, the intrigue, the whole Mahabharata narration. And the scene of her prayers is as shown here. Krishna is about to leave Hastinapur because the Kurukshetra battle is over. Yudhishthira Maharaj has been installed as the emperor of the world, and Krishna's purpose for visiting is now completed. Krishna is about to return. And as he's on the chariot, throngs of the residents of Hastinapur there in the public square. She's appealing to Krishna, but the appeal comes later. It starts with glorification of Krishna, and the beginning of her prayers start with text 18, and we covered already 18 through 27. So this section 18 through 24 summary pretty quickly. She begins, as is suited for her, with expressions of humility. She honors the position of bhakti, the superlative position of bhakti, above any other of the processes for trying to realize or understand Krishna Gyan. For example, she specifically speaks about. She highlights again and again, and is going to continue, the inconceivable nature of Krishna. Inconceivable means that the mind is the place where conceiving of things takes shelter. So he's inconceivable. And part of how he maintains his inconceivable identity is this curtain, Javanika of Maya. We're going to see this again a couple of times. And he extends protection, though those who see him as their only shelter, and a really strong point of emphasis, that's why it's in such big letters, his apparently contradictory nature. That's similar to inconceivable. With the mind, to reason the nature of Krishna is overwhelming. And in him all contradictory qualities are reconciled. We're going to hear this again. So this is in the earlier section, and it comes up again, and it comes up again. So, starting with text 25, 6, and 7, that's as far as we got. Vipada, that's this word calamities, and unlike anybody else that I know of, Kunti's appealing not specifically for calamities, but she knows when there's calamity for the devotee, then Krishna comes. So she wants Krishna to come. Because when Krishna comes, they can see him. And when they see him, the cycle of repeated birth and death is finished. So, yeah, vipada means calamity. This is review. This is described in the purport. Prabhupada speaks of the Bhagavatam verse, padam, yadvipadam. There's the word. Natesham. There's danger at every step, or calamity at every step. So, watch your step. And we read the purport. A nice example is Narada Muni in the first part of Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Narada Muni is searching the three worlds for the greatest recipient of Krishna's mercy. At one point he goes, at the recommendation specifically of Hanuman. Hanuman considers the Pandavas to be greater recipients of Krishna's mercy because Krishna is always with them. But when Narada arrives in Hastinapur, they're having a Pandava conference. And the conference is making the plan for the next calamity. Because in the past, every time there's been some danger, difficulty, calamity, Krishna has come. So they're now planning out what's the best way to get Krishna to come. The commentary by Vishwanath. These dangers are a great bliss to me, O Guru of the universe, Kunti speaking. To give benefit to us, you destroy unsteadiness caused by intoxication with material comfort, by giving the ointment of dangers, vipada, arising out of your mercy. Through those dangers we can see you. By seeing you, we no longer will see suffering of material existence. we made reference to the Avanti Brahmin story very quickly. It's a whole chapter in the Uddhava Gita section of 11th canto. Krishna is teaching Uddhava in this chapter. His question is, what's the cause of suffering? And Krishna tells the story of the Avanti Brahmin. The punchline is, suffering is due to the mind. Long narration. So Krishna relieves the mind from that sense of suffering for the devotee because the mind takes shelter in Krishna. And then there's two verses where this term akinchana, or materially exhausted, underlined there. My Lord, your Lordship can easily be approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. One is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feelings. That's this first line. Janma, high parentage, high birth, great opulence, Aishvarya, Shruta, good education, and what comes along with it, Shri, beauty, bodily beauty. So persons who are hankering very intensely over those things, it's hard for such persons to feelingly pray and take shelter. So we heard Eda Mana Madak Puman. That's a phrase in her. It was Janma Aishvarya Shruta Shribir. Eda Mana Mada Puman. A human being who is interested in progressively increasing any one of those four things or combination. Generally speaking, that's the path that's followed by people who believe, and it's pervasive in the world, not just one part of the world, that religion, Krishna says it right in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, people believe that religion is for the purpose of increasing piety. The fruits of piety are to assist one to enjoy in this life, prosperous life, and then after this life go to the heaven realm where there's even more prosperity and more opulence and more enjoyment. And that's the purpose of religion, and there's nothing more than this, Krishna says. So that's the term that's used in the Bhagavatam and in Vedic literature. That's pravritti marg, the path of progressive material enjoyment. That's this edamana path, or pravritti, increasing. So dharma for the purpose of artha, for the purpose of kama. Dhamma, artha, kama. And sometime later in life, down the road, is moksha. And that's purushartha. It's a common series or sequence that's within not only the Vedic texts, but other texts also, religious texts. But the teaching of the Bhagavatam is different. It's nivritti, and it's increasing, gradually decreasing implication in material affairs. That doesn't mean get rid of your house and your clothes and your wealth, but the attachment to those things, increasingly detached from those things on the basis of increasing attachment to the Supreme. So like, here we are. Here's a computer, there's a projector, there's this fancy recording device, camera, but we're using things that are the product of the material energy for the purpose of serving Krishna. So one's wealth and one's education, one's beauty, one's good birth, those things should be dedicated in service to Krishna. And when they are, the attachment to Krishna grows, and the attachment to the sense of being the enjoyer of those things fades. Rather, it's how to use those things in Krishna's service. It's Krishna's happiness that increases. Happiness increases through love. That's the Bhagavatam's message. That's this nivritti marg. So it's right in Queen Kunti's prayers here. There's a illustration of respectable parentage, great opulence, high education. I had a tough time finding good image for bodily beauty. That's an Egyptian queen that was somehow known to be especially beautiful. So those that aspire simply for those things, that there's a tendency to neglect the pleasure of Krishna, or to not be able to feelingly pray, feeling secure in a world that's actually full of danger by having material things, which are all going to be taken anyways. Our youth, our beauty, our strength, our knowledge, our wealth, our home, our this, our that, whatever it is that we accumulated, it's temporary, it's all going to be taken. So that false security, that's this akinchana gochara message. She's going to say it again in the next verse. Abhidatum is right in her Abhidatum by Twamakinchana Gocharam. It's hard for such persons to Abhidatum, to call the names of the Supreme Lord feelingly. So, similar is this Akinchana Vitaya, slightly different but the same essential message. The other was materially exhausted. The here is materially impoverished. We're going to see in a moment, it's not a requirement. She's not saying that her sons should be impoverished, and then they can be good boys. The opulence of Yudhisthira, we'll see in a moment, rivaled that of the heavenly realm. Extremely opulent. So it's not give things up or have nothing, it's finding shelter or happiness, that deriving happiness from having those things. So here's the verse. My obeisances are unto you, who are the property of the materially impoverished. You have nothing to do with the actions and reactions of the material modes of nature. You are self-satisfied, and therefore you are the most gentle and are the master of the monists. So just go through the Sanskrit a bit. Nivritta, we saw that one, previous verse. Nivritta guna vrittaye. So he has nothing to do with the gunas. He's transcendental to the modes of nature. She knows that that's Krishna's nature. Another is this Atmarama phrase, very famous verse in the Bhagavatam, the Atmarama verse, Atmaramaya, Shantaya, Shanta is peaceful, gentle, and Kaivalya Pataye. Each of the sampradayas has some term that explains the nature of their teachings. Just like some of you may know, Sri Vaishnavas, their teaching is where they're inherently within the personality of Godhead, Narayana, there are attributes. Vishishta, Advaita. Vishishta means attributes, Advaita. Within Narayana there's a relationship of non-difference between Narayana and the attributes of Narayana. That's his teaching. Madhvacharya, Dvaitavad, absolute dualism. And Shankara's teaching is Kevala, this word, Kevala or Kaivalya, Kevala Advaita, absolute non-dualism. That's his teaching. So this Kaivalya, it's a strong word, and in this case it's denoting the monists, because there's also Kevala Bhakti. That's a nice phrase. And Pataye, that's the master, the Pati, the master, the father, the Pati of these fellows, the Kaivalya Pataye. You are most gentle and the master of the monists. So there's a monist, very detached from the world, neglecting his hair, neglecting his everything. And Prabhupada's purport expresses that a living being is finished as soon as there is nothing to possess. In other words, it's the soul's nature. You can't be other than what the soul's nature is. You have something. Therefore, a living being cannot be, in the real sense of the term, a renouncer. That is to say, what is it ours to renounce? We enter the world owning nothing, and leave the world owning nothing. And in between we may accumulate something and then renounce that something. But that something that we accumulate as well as the something that we renounce, it's not ours. So the true renouncer recognizes everything belongs to whoever it belonged to before we entered into this world and when we leave this world. Everything is the property of the Supreme. Isavashamitam sarvam, in the language of Ishopanishad. So he, Krishna, who she's addressing, he's the master of these fellows who are trying to be possessors of nothing, but he's the master of them. This is from 3rd Canto Bhagavatam. Nice painting of Yudhisthira and Draupadi and his 4 brothers. When Maharaj Yudhisthira was ruling his kingdom with the help of Lord Krishna and Arjuna, the opulence of his kingdom surpassed all imaginations of the opulence of the kingdom of heaven. So, materially impoverished doesn't mean literally that he had no wealth, but it wasn't a place of shelter for him. It was something to be utilized in service as a king, in service to Krishna as a king. And similarly, we may have some resource at our disposal, and that should be understood as Krishna's resource, which we're using in service to Krishna. Another nice example, this is a painting of Maharaj Ambarisha's worship. He was a Krishna Bhakta, and he had a Krishna deity, and he worshipped his Radha Krishna deity with great opulence. It's described directly in the 9th Canto Bhagavatam. He achieved inexhaustible, unlimited opulence and prosperity on earth. In other words, he had opulence like that of Vaikuntha, which is far more than that of the heavenly realm. Incredibly opulent and incredibly detached. He used it all and incredibly detached because what was important to him was service. And so the resource was something to be used in service, but not for sense gratification, in other words. And thus he could feelingly call the Lord's name and engage in his service. A little bit of commentary. Anartha means things that are not wanted. By diverting, Prabhupada's purport, by diverting attention to so many unwanted things, human energy is spoiled without achievement of spiritual realization, the prime necessity of human life. And that feelingly calling out for the Supreme Lord becomes blocked by that. So, feelingly calling out is best achieved through this process of chanting. The material disease is due to hankering after and lording it over material nature. This hankering is due to the interaction of the 3 modes of nature, directly from Bhagavad Gita. So down here, the fellow that's the supervisor, he's thinking he's on top of the game. And the other fellow, the worker, is working for the supervisor. But they're all under the control of the modes of nature, acting under Krishna's direction. So this is the material disease, and freedom doesn't mean don't do anything, but you do everything without attachment to the inclination to be the enjoyer of the fruits of that work. Unfortunately, the Lord doesn't have that interest, and the devotees of the Lord become, by association with the Lord, free from that attachment. This is Vishwanath, his rendering of the Kunti's prayer. I offer my respects to he whose treasure is unalloyed devotees, who is devoid of material interest, who is disinterested in those who are not devotees, and who forgives his devotees, and who helps the devotee desiring liberation. This is the long one. This is his commentary. Those who do not have anything, materially speaking, but possess only you, who have a body of complete knowledge and bliss, are alone your unalloyed devotees. They are the abodes of prema, and thus are like treasures, who should be hidden from everyone. I offer respects to you, who possess these treasures of the Akinchanas. So in other words, he's the proprietor of everything they say that they're not the proprietor of. He owns it, and they're engaging it in service. But Akinchanas are poor. That's true. The devotees of the Lord do not have the wealth arising from the gunas of Maya. They have the Lord, who is devoid of all material enjoyment. The Lord's attachment to the Akinchana bhaktas was described, it's in previous verses. Now, his detachment from others is shown. Atmaramaya. If the devotee makes offense to the Lord does not become angry. He remains peaceful. Shantaya. Showing mercy to his devotee, he also assists those devotees interested in liberation. So now that was a little review. 25, 26, 27. 26 and 27 are quite similar. That's the non-attachment to the temporary, due to attachment to the eternal, and that's a good nourishing field for bhakti to grow. Because earlier she was speaking of the significance of bhakti. Now she's going to more directly speak about Krishna himself. And let's see. Kala, because it's going to appear in a few verses. Kala means time. My Lord, I consider your Lordship to be eternal time, the Supreme Controller, without beginning and end, the all-pervasive one. In distributing your mercy, you're equal to everyone. The dissensions between living beings are due to social intercourse. This is very profound, but let's see how Prabhupada deals with this. He speaks about destiny because there's questions people ask. If destiny is the way things work, then maybe we don't even have free will, it's just everything is destined. You've heard that one brought up and discussed from time to time. And if there is destiny, then how do we have the controller of destiny neutral? Because it looked like some people get good and some people get bad. And so how can the Ishwar be neutral? And for that matter, even spiritual destiny. Well, I'm going to go back to God in this lifetime, so how I go? Or I'm not going, so too bad. Is it? What's the function of destiny? So this message of apparently contradictory features of Krishna is going to come out. And she's going to say this a number of times, again and again, but understanding Krishna isn't easy. There's mystery involved in Krishna. Going back, text 19 was in the earlier section, where Kunti says, in essence, I do not know you, covered by the screen of Maya, beyond the knowledge of the material senses, and unaffected, just like the puppeteer behind the screen, moving the puppets is not understood by the eyes of the ignorant. Remember that one? Text 19. We'll see it even one more time. So, little illustration. There's a puppet. You may not see the strings, and a child could maybe see the puppet literally playing the violin, moving the string back and forth, and the bow back and forth, and the sound coming out, and look like the puppet is playing the violin, when it's the puppeteer that's playing the puppet that's playing the violin. So Krishna's in the background. So we may not see Krishna in the background, the puppeteer that's moving the puppet. But he's there. And therefore, ignorant people don't understand him, because he's covered by this screen of Maya. Just like the moon at night, we may not be able to see the brightness of the moon at night because of the clouds covering. Clouds are like Maya. So Krishna objects. Kunti, you see me directly and you praise me. You know that I am behind Prakriti, then why do you criticize yourself as being ignorant? She has this humble side to her. But then she expresses, it's not just humble. Though the dancer is endowed with rhythms and dance steps suitable to the rasa, the ignorant spectator, ignorant of the scriptures delineating performance, sees only a dancer dancing. Though he sees, he does not really see. Simply though I see you, I do not really see you. The word tata, similarly, should be understood from the context. Though you protect the Pandavas, your devotees, since you are the soul within all of us constantly, you personally counteracted a weapon of Ashvatthama meant for killing the Pandavas. Though you promised not to use weapons, you took up a weapon. Though you protect the righteous, you had Bhishma and other righteous persons destroyed. Though you are most affectionate to Draupadi and Subhadra, you let their sons be killed. I do not know the truth about your pastimes. There is a mystery about Krishna, although she sees him, she's expressing, I don't really see you, I don't have full understanding. There's mystery surrounding everything about you, and I don't have the capacity to understand that mystery. In Prabhupada's purport, directly now back to verse 28, the Paramatma feature of the Lord is Kala. Just as he says in Bhagavad Gita, time I am, Kalosmi, or eternal time. Eternal time is the witness of all our actions, good and bad, and thus resultant reactions are destined. He's describing now this doubt that people have about if everything is destined. So in one sense, we're creating our own destiny by choices we make, which are observed by Paramatma, or here eternal time, and thus a reaction comes in direct relation to our choices. It's the exact same message is there in Brahma Samhita about living entities from the Indra Gopa Germ up to the King of Heaven, Indra. Everyone is getting the fruit of their free will choices. Without his sanction, not a blade of grass can move. The living beings are given as much freedom as they deserve. So this is addressing the destiny question. We may have a lot of freedom. We may have less freedom. And misuse of that freedom is the cause of suffering. We're the creators of our own destiny. Kala offers the conditioned souls both happiness and miseries. This destiny is made by the living beings in the course of social intercourse. That's her message here. The Supreme Lord is all-pervading, and therefore he can see everyone's activities. That's in his Paramatma feature, he's situated within every atom. Beside electrons, there's the Supreme Lord within every atom. And it's from that position within every atom that he protected Maharaj Parikshit was still within the womb. That he showed that feature to Maharaj Parikshit, even still within the womb. Oops. Because the Lord has no beginning or end, he is known as the eternal time, Kala. Now Vishwanath, giving his explanation, Kunti is saying, I consider you to be the destroyer of the offenders, the controller, without beginning or end, the most powerful, equal to all, moving everywhere in all living beings, and the abode of conflicting qualities. His commentary. This verse describes the Lord's destruction of those who offend his devotees. You are not unjust because you show attachment to the devotee, indifference to matter, assistance to some, and destruction of others. Yad mita kalihi means in whom there is conflict, because the Lord gives suffering and bliss. He is equal and prejudiced, is unmerciful and merciful. In him all apparently contradictory opposites are resolved. Now, in America, this yin-yang symbol is not so popular or prevalent. In China's everywhere. And material creation has its opposites. Everything of this world has its opposites. Now, where does that everything come from? It has to be in the Supreme. For it to exist here, it has to be in the Supreme in its perfect form. Here is the perverted form. Just like, you remember it's not so long ago we were discussing Prahlad's prayers. And when discussing Prahlad's prayers, there was this lengthy discussion about his enmity, his anger. He was roaring, and the demigods tried to pacify him. They couldn't pacify him because he was angry. So, wait a minute. What's going on with having anger in the Supreme Person? Because everything is there in the Supreme Person. But the anger of the Supreme Lord is not under the modes of nature kind of anger. It's a transcendental, uninfluenced by the modes of nature kind of anger. And then here is the reflection where it's under the modes of nature. And everything in everything. So within Krishna is everything. To understand Krishna, there must be everything. There must be acceptance. Within him is everything. Because how can there be something that doesn't come from the source of everything? So, in him all apparently contradictory opposites are resolved. And for that, he is irreproachable. Again, here's this reference to text 19, we already went over it. You are the eternally irreproachable factor avyayam. It's right in Bhagavad Gita, the same word, avyayam, irreproachable, unlimited, adhoksajam and avyayam, beyond the range of limited perception, that's adhoksaja, and avyayam, eternally irreproachable factor, covered by the curtain of diluting energy. The curtain of diluting energy, that's up here. Maya Javanika. Maya Javanika, the curtain of Yoga Maya, the curtain of the diluting potency. One cannot see him, because he's beyond the range of limited sense perception and the eternally irreproachable factor. Within him is everything, and we can't understand him by our material calculations. The example was given like an actor on a stage, so that's the Lion King and the Broadway production. So there's a lion, and whatever that one is, a tiger, I guess, or lioness or something. And so there's a mask, and behind the mask is a person. So Krishna may present himself in this world in the form of his energy, but he's what's behind the energy, and we can't see him. He's irreproachable for that for his transcendental nature. Pretty interesting costume, huh? Okay. just one more. Same theme. Is Krishna partial or not? Naveda kaschit bhagavan shikirshita taveha manasya drinam vidambanam nayasya kaschit daitosti karhichit tvekshascha yasmin vishamamatirnirnam Naveda kaschit bhagavan shikirshita No one can understand your transcendental pastime, which appear to be human and are so misleading. You have no specific object of favor, nor do you have any object of envy. People only imagine that you are partial. Now, previously it was this time energy, and now it's, and the time energy is moving things. We've been discussing this in the Sunday class and the morning class also. So, the time energy moves things this way, moves things that way, in part by the free will choices living entity makes, and the time energy moves things according to their choices. But stepping back from all of this, what does it look like? It externally look like partiality. You do good, you get good. You do bad, you get bad. And so the devotees are treated in a way that looks like they're favored. Or the demigods and the demons over there, they're disfavored. And behind what he does, or what happens to different living entities, what are the intentions of the Supreme Lord? Again, this is another dimension of Kunti's taking a look at the contradictory nature, apparently contradictory nature. So Prabhupada's explanation: the Lord's mercy upon the fallen souls is equally distributed. Just like this is the sun's rays. The sun's rays shine everywhere equally. Just the sun is never partial to anyone. Partiality in receiving the Lord's mercy is relative to the recipient, and is not due to the partiality of the all-merciful Lord. Very, very simple example. The sun shines equally everywhere. There's different ways of receiving the sunshine. We're going to see in just a moment. So, when Krishna performs his pastimes, when the Lord descends on this material world, he plays like a human being, and therefore it appears that the Lord is partial to his devotees only, but that is not a fact. Vishwanath states, no one knows the intentions of the Lord, who desires to hide himself in human form, who does not show favor or hatred to anyone, and about whom all men have different opinions. Which is true. So his commentary: who's going to decide the truth about you? if there is a disagreement. Answer. No one can decide. So, in life, about God or about practically anything, we have naturally persons of different opinions about things. And when they have different opinions about things, there is quite often some conflict. No one knows the plan of you who desire to play the role of human beings as Rama and Krishna. Rama meaning, in this case, Balaram. What's his intention? What's his plan? Who can say? No one knows the plan of you who desire to delude the fools by not letting them see your sweet qualities. A classic example is the washerman. When Krishna was entering Mathura, there was a washerman carrying King Kamsa's clothes. And the washerman couldn't see Krishna. So he insulted the cowherd boys. You better be careful. The king hears that you want some of his clothes, you're finished. These unsuitable boys to receive something. So he started insulting the cowherd boys. Krishna didn't like that. So he was finished. What to speak of Shishupal? Because of his envious regard for Krishna, he was also finished in the royal assembly. So here's the concluding description, Vishwanath. All men have differing ideas about you. Yasmin Vishama Matir Nirnam. The sun shows attachment to the sunstone by imparting its own qualities. Now, what's a sunstone or a Surya Kanta gem is the phrase that Bhaktisiddhanta uses. I've never seen a Surya Kanta gem, but such a thing exists. And it's a gem that doesn't just reflect light like a crystal or a diamond. It absorbs the light of the sun and it's luminous. You can put it in a dark place and it's luminous. Surya Kanta gem. The sun shows indifference to blind people and is helpful to the Chakravaka bird, who becomes joyful when the sun rises and destroys darkness. We often hear about a Chakravaka bird, so I was curious, what does a Chakravaka bird look like? So this is from the internet, that's a Chakravaka bird. The sun is harmful to the darkness used by thieves and owls. But the sun is not partial to anyone. It manifests the same light to all. The cause of difference is the good and bad qualities of the specific object. It is the same with the Lord. Different people relate with the Lord in different ways according to their qualities. Kunti's prayers are pretty deep. She's addressing in a spontaneous manner questions that many people ponder again and again, come up with different answers. Just as it says, different people have different explanations of things, and explanations of God and why He does, and His intentions and who He is. A big mystery. The mystery can be understood by devotion. That goes back to the earlier section of her prayers. She is a pure devotee. She understands Krishna. And even she is saying, I don't understand you. There's this contradictory side to you that I can't fathom. Apparently contradictory. discussion. A little review from beginning of our prayers, starting with 18, here we are, all the way to 28, 29. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. After these prayers, when the prayers were ended by Mother Kunti, the Lord just reciprocates with a smile. That's the only one shloka given in Bhagavatam. But is there any other commentaries given by other acharyas?
What did Lord do after hearing all her prayers?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I've not come across anything. I could look and see, but I'm not aware. What the Bhagavatam says is, after she makes her appeal, please don't go, Yudhisthira says, please stay for some days. So he agrees to stay for some days. But specific to Kunti, how he responds to her and her prayers. Smiles. Sometimes a smile says a lot. She's offering her affection and he's accepting her affection and reciprocating. Yes?
This is in relation to seeing Krishna in the background of everything.
Yeah, okay.
While, at least I feel that there's a lot of action required from our side, initiation of some action or doing day-to-day activities while we interact with other people. Now when we put Krishna in the background, we also have the perspective of this Krishna in other people's action, Krishna as the backdrop for their actions too. So where do we draw the line?
Why do you need to draw a line? I don't understand. Why do you need?
I mean, I'm trying to, where do we understand our action, our actions, as well as where do we put in action in situation? I'm not clear.
I'm not understanding.
Yes.
Actually, I had the same question, Maharaj.
Well,
The
could you articulate
email that
differently?
with an example. Maybe we got this email about everything going wrong about the book distribution. The book distributor was trying to distribute, but everything was going wrong, and finally he reaches a Chinese girl.
And finally, what happened?
She wanted to buy the book. The book distributor met her a day
This
before.
morning email.
In
This morning we got an email from Sweden.
From Sweden.
The book distribution is having tough time, and he finds the Chinese girl who was very recipient. We sent it this morning, Guru Maharaj.
I didn't see it. Was the recipient of that?
You only sent it.
I sent it.
The morning one. This
Okay.
morning.
Somebody did it on my behalf. There's a lineup of things that they were just like negligent in sending out. Okay. So now
the book distribution store, the incident was that a distributor is distributing some books, and everything he was trying to do since
it
morning
wasn't working out.
It wasn't working out,
And then suddenly it worked out.
Suddenly it worked out. He gave a book to
Somebody.
a Chinese person, and that girl actually. I'm not exactly saying the exact timings, but the distributor meets her before and she doesn't respond because she was with her friends, though her intention was to take that book. And when she sees the book distributor second time, she was so eager and she takes that book and she says that, I was very eager to take the book last time, but circumstances. So the book distributor, the message was that maybe the actions, all that was going wrong, was maybe purposeful, that it was going towards that this Chinese girl needs to receive that book. So I was action in action, that he was trying to do the action, but everything was going, against him. my question was also like the blade of grass, nothing moves according to the,
Without the sanction.
sanction. So these actions were happening according to that principle. Everything is happening to sanction of Lord. Then where is his free will, or where he should have stopped, or like an inaction, saying that okay, it's let me stop there, kind of.
Did she get it?
Kind of, Maharaj.
Let's do. We'll stay on it for a while, back and forth. No problem. There's in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes there's 5 factors of action. One is what we're responsible. One of the 5 is what we're responsible for. Some endeavor. Cheshta. That's what we're responsible for. So, if there isn't sanction, that's another one of the 5. No matter how much you endeavor, it's not going to happen. Now that's where there's the living entity that has free will and can make choices. We have much more freedom of making choices than a blade of grass. But when we're acting, that's some endeavor we're making. The outcome is in Krishna's hands. So our department is the service department. Results is in Krishna's department. So that's different than your question. Your question is what?
I think you may have touched it, Maharaj. I think what I was trying to say is, while Krishna is in the background of everything, say if there's a situation,
Krishna's in the background, so you speak slower.
Yes, Krishna is in the background of every act.
Every action. His sanction is there.
His sanction is there.
Okay.
So now, when I have to take an action, a subsequent action, or at least maybe the endeavor.
That's you.
Yes. How do we decide if I just accept what Krishna has been giving to me?
There's somebody, because you were speaking, there's somebody else and they have their set of cheshtas and endeavors and actions and what's Krishna's role when there's conflicting interests and conflicting endeavors? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, Maharaj. What I was trying to say is, should we see that other people's endeavors as also a back,
Of course. Of course. And that's where relationship comes in. That was covered previously by Kunti, but the relationship is, it's coming up. The soul-to-soul relationship is with Krishna at the center. So, just take your family. There's members in your family, and there's different desires and different needs and different personalities and different types of things going on. And Krishna's in the background of the whole thing. And yes, we should see that Krishna's in the background. And the goal in a relationship is to please Krishna. Not just make a deal where I get some of mine, you get some of yours. And there's some place where we share, so that's fine. And that's a relationship. That's not a relationship. That's not a soul-to-soul relationship or a transcendental relationship. Transcendental relationship is we're interested in seeing Krishna's wants and serving that. What does Krishna want? What's Krishna's interest? And we're hearing it's not easy to understand that. But that should be the goal. So yes. You okay? You want more on this? Probably you do. You want to rephrase it?
Yeah, I was trying to see, was it that the Chinese girl who was destiny, her things that was dragging? Or
No, it's not destiny. It's because, moment to moment, karma is fructifying, and it's dynamic. It's changing all the time. Not static. It's dynamic. So somebody that's not just the individual that's saying no, and because the other person with them is not wanting. Even the person that's not wanting can say yes in a dynamic way, and that's, and Krishna's in the background there also. So in your service, take for example the efforts to raise the funds to make the temple new project happen. It's a mountain, and Krishna's mercy's got to be there, or the mountain isn't going to be climbed. So what can you do? You can make some endeavor. And then some people are going to say no, some people say yes, and some people say maybe. And that's just, that's the free will choice that they're making. It's not a predestined, some people are going to say yes. They wouldn't say, if it's predestined, they're going to say yes, then you don't have to even ask, because they're just going to say yes. They're going to step forward and say, I heard something, and tell me about it, I want to help. You have to ask. You have to make some endeavor. And then comes this, in the book distribution story, someone may, the no may become a yes, or the maybe may become a no, or may become a yes. You don't know. We're just making some endeavor. And the intention is important, and that's pleasing Krishna. Not just fruitive getting the result so that I can, have another mark on my report card. I get another success. Just Krishna's to be pleased. That's all. And because it's for his service, it may happen sooner, may happen later. So I remember seeing, not remember, maybe you saw the lifting of the 2 remaining chakras in Mayapur temple, and a big festival, etc., etc. And I saw Ambarish and his main fundraiser, I forget his name right now, walking down the stairs. And so I just, went up to him and said, really fantastic festival. And he just immediately volunteered in saying, I never thought we'd get to this stage in my lifetime. It's beyond my expectation. Certainly there was endeavor, but I didn't really anticipate we'd get to this stage. Because I remember from GBC meetings, he would say, sometimes major construction, it takes, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. Major structures take a long time. I guess as part of it is funding, and the rest of it is sometimes it's very complicated. It takes a long time. You maybe have the funding. Kings would have the funds, but it would still take a long time. So, Krishna's mercy, some endeavor, and Krishna's mercy. He wants this to happen. We have to make some endeavor because he wants it to happen. It's not. So it's a combination. And they had a different idea when they began. They began with the idea that major wealthy people in the world. Now maybe that's going to happen towards the end, when they see it's almost coming to a close. They'll want their name somewhere, so they'll contribute something to help. But they're before the construction began, they did this. Traveled around the world and asked different wealthy groups of people, and they said, "Sure, we'd like to make this happen." Hardly anything. And instead, in those same places where the wealthy people said yes, it was the devotees that came forward. The little here and little there, and then amounted to something substantial. Anyway, so who knows? We make some endeavor. And the result is of Bhakti Krishna. And he's in the background. with both the donor and the asker, or the book distributor and the person to receive the book, or anything in life. Okay. Anything else? Wonder how the kids are doing under book distribution. We'll find out. Got any message? Huh?
I don't have my phone.
Don't have your phone, okay. Anyone? Yes?
Maharaj, from today's class, what I got is it's very difficult to understand Krishna,
You got it.
but with bhakti you can understand.
Yeah.
So could you elaborate on how to focus on bhakti?
Elaborate on how to focus on bhakti.
Yeah, how to perform that kind of...
Well, it's two things. You let go of the other endeavors, endeavoring through speculative knowledge. Just don't place so much value in that. We use our rational faculty, but that's not the means by which you can know He who is beyond the rational faculty. And bhakti is, we render service with the eagerness to know Krishna, and Krishna can reveal Himself, and according to His pleasure. As He's revealing Himself to Kunti, He can reveal Himself to any one of us. Same as these other two examples, the book distributor example or the fundraiser example. Who knows? But we make some endeavor. We make some endeavor to please Krishna with the eagerness that I want to know Him and understand Him. As she's saying, to see Him. And if the price of seeing Him is a calamity, I'm ready to pay the price, because I'm eager to see Him. So that eagerness in devotion is to please Krishna, and Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Please be visible. I wish to see you. And all material contamination gone. And even if you don't see Him, the eagerness to see Him takes away all material contamination. Okay. We're done. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.